One of the biggest dating mistakes women make is believing that being chosen is more important than choosing wisely. And this mistake quietly changes everything. It changes the way you speak, the way you text, the way you tolerate disrespect, and the way you abandon yourself just to keep someone interested. A lot of women walk into dating asking, "How do I make him like me?" instead of asking, "Does this man actually deserve access to me?" And the moment you stop interviewing men for compatibility and start performing for approval, you lose your power without even realizing it. Too many women confuse attraction with value. Just because a man wants you does not mean he's capable of loving you properly. Just because he texts you every day does not mean he's emotionally available. Just because he compliments your appearance does not mean he respects your heart. And when you don't understand this, you start attaching your worth to male attention instead of male consistency. Attention is easy. Effort is rare. Intention is rare. Emotional maturity is rare. A man being interested in you is not the prize. A healthy relationship is. Another massive mistake women make is ignoring red flags because they're emotionally attached to potential. They see who a man could become instead of who he actually is. They fall in love with the future version of him they created in their head. They tell themselves, maybe he's just scared, maybe he's been hurt, maybe he'll change if I love him enough. But love does not transform people who have no desire to transform themselves. And sometimes the hardest truth to accept is that chemistry can exist without compatibility. You can deeply desire someone who is completely wrong for you. A lot of women stay too long in situations that drain them because they mistake inconsistency for mystery. They think emotional unavailability is attractive because it creates obsession. The highs feel exciting. The uncertainty feels addictive. But healthy love is not confusion. Healthy love is not anxiety. Healthy love does not leave you checking your phone every 5 minutes wondering where you stand. If a man genuinely values you, you will not constantly feel like you're fighting for reassurance. And yet so many women normalize emotional chaos because they grew up believing love had to be earned through suffering. Another dating mistake is overgiving too early. So many women pour all of their energy into a man before he has actually earned access to that level of care. They prioritize him immediately. They cancel plans for him. They emotionally invest after 2 good conversations. They start acting like a girlfriend before commitment even exists. And then they wonder why the dynamic becomes unbalanced. When you give too much too soon, you rob yourself of the ability to observe clearly. You become emotionally attached before you've even gathered enough information about who this person really is. And this is important because dating is not supposed to be instant attachment. Dating is supposed to be discernment. It's supposed to be observation. You are not meant to hand your heart over immediately and hope for the best. You are supposed to watch how someone behaves under pressure. You are supposed to notice how they communicate, how they handle conflict, how they treat people who cannot benefit them. But many women skip this stage completely because they're so afraid of losing someone that they rush intimacy in order to secure connection. One of the saddest mistakes women make is abandoning their standards the moment they really like someone. Suddenly, the things they once said they would never tolerate become negotiable. Suddenly, they accept bare minimum effort because they're afraid that asking for more will push him away. But the right man will not be intimidated by standards. The wrong man will. And there is a huge difference. Standards are not about being difficult. They are about protecting your emotional well-being. They are about recognizing that your time, energy, and heart are valuable. Another mistake is believing that being low maintenance will make a man value you more. Some women are terrified of expressing needs because they don't want to seem clingy, emotional, or demanding, so they stay silent. They pretend they're okay with behavior that hurts them. They act unbothered when they actually feel disappointed. But suppressing your needs does not create a healthy relationship. It creates resentment. A woman who cannot communicate honestly eventually loses herself trying to maintain an image of being easygoing. And a lot of women mistake self-sacrifice for femininity. They believe being feminine means always being accommodating, always understanding, always patient, always forgiving. But true femininity is not weakness. It's not passivity. A truly feminine woman understands her worth deeply enough to walk away from situations that disrespect her peace. She knows softness and self-respect can coexist. She knows kindness does not require self-abandonment. Another major mistake women make is trying to compete with other women instead of focusing on becoming emotionally secure within themselves. Social media has made dating feel like a performance. Women constantly compare themselves to other women's looks, bodies, lifestyles, and relationships. They think if they were prettier, sexier, quieter, cooler, more successful, or more effortless, then a man would finally choose them properly. But insecurity is exhausting because there will always be someone else to compare yourself to. Real confidence comes from knowing your value is not dependent on being more desirable than another woman. And perhaps one of the most destructive dating mistakes is staying in relationships where effort is one sided. So many women become emotional caretakers. They become therapists, motivators, and rescuers. They carry the emotional weight of the relationship while the man simply benefits from their nurturing energy. They over-explain, over-communicate, over-analyze, and overcompensate for a man who is giving very little in return. And the painful part is that the more they give, the less appreciated they often feel. Love should not feel like constant emotional labor. You should not have to convince someone to value you consistently. You should not have to beg for communication, affection, reassurance, or respect. And if you constantly feel emotionally depleted in a relationship, that is information. Stop ignoring your intuition just because you're afraid of being alone. A lot of women also make the mistake of romanticizing struggle. They think if a relationship is hard, it must mean it's meaningful. But difficulty is not proof of depth. Sometimes difficulty is simply incompatibility. Sometimes the lesson is not to fight harder, but to leave sooner. The strongest women are not the ones who tolerate the most pain. They are the ones who know when enough is enough. And finally, one of the biggest dating mistakes women make is forgetting themselves inside relationships. They stop prioritizing their goals, friendships, hobbies, routines, and emotional health. Their entire identity slowly becomes centered around a man's attention. And this creates desperation, because when your whole world revolves around someone else, every small shift in their behavior feels devastating. The healthiest relationships happen when two whole people come together, not when one person disappears trying to keep the other. A woman becomes magnetic when she has a life she genuinely loves outside of dating, when she respects herself enough to walk away from inconsistency, when she stops chasing validation and starts choosing herself, when she understands that love is not about proving your worth to someone who cannot see it. It's about recognizing your worth before anyone else ever has the chance to define it. And when a woman truly understands that, everything about the way she dates begins to change. She stops approaching relationships from a place of fear and starts approaching them from a place of confidence. She no longer feels the need to convince someone to stay. She no longer over-explains her value to people who are committed to misunderstanding her. She stops shrinking herself to fit into spaces that were never designed to honor her fully. And this shift is powerful because the moment you stop chasing validation, you become far more selective about whose opinions even matter to you. One of the biggest transformations a woman can make in dating is learning how to be comfortable with disappointment. That sounds harsh at first, but it's actually freeing. Because many women stay stuck in unhealthy situations simply because they cannot tolerate the discomfort of letting go. They cling to potential because they fear emptiness. They hold on to breadcrumbs because they fear loneliness. But emotionally mature women understand something important. Temporary loneliness is far less painful than long-term self-betrayal. Sometimes you have to be willing to disappoint yourself in the short term to protect your future peace. You have to be willing to walk away from someone you deeply wanted because the relationship itself is damaging your self-esteem. And that takes strength. It takes emotional discipline. It takes the ability to separate feelings from facts, because feelings can lie to you. Feelings can make unhealthy people seem irresistible. Feelings can make inconsistency feel romantic. But facts matter more. Actions matter more. Patterns matter more. Another mistake women make is mistaking emotional intensity for emotional intimacy. Just because a connection feels passionate does not mean it's healthy. Trauma bonds often feel intense. Toxic dynamics often feel addictive. The emotional roller coaster creates attachment because your nervous system becomes hooked on unpredictability. One day he's affectionate, the next day distant. One day you feel adored, the next day ignored. And your brain starts craving the highs because they temporarily relieve the anxiety caused by the lows. But that is not love. That is emotional instability disguised as chemistry. Real intimacy is built slowly. It's built through trust, safety, consistency, honesty, and emotional presence. It's not built through confusion and chaos. And many women have to unlearn the idea that healthy love is boring simply because it feels unfamiliar. Peaceful relationships can initially feel less exciting to women who are used to emotional turbulence. But peace is not boredom. Peace is emotional security. Peace is knowing someone's words and actions align. Peace is not having to constantly question where you stand. Another dating mistake women make is obsessing over being desired instead of being respected. Desire alone cannot sustain a relationship. Attraction matters, yes, but respect is what determines how someone treats you over time. A man can be intensely attracted to a woman and still disrespect her boundaries, waste her time, or emotionally manipulate her. Respect is what creates emotional safety. Respect is what makes someone care about your feelings even when it's inconvenient. Respect is what keeps love healthy after the excitement phase fades. And this is why confidence matters so much. Not performative confidence, not arrogance, not pretending not to care. Real confidence is quiet. It's grounded. It's the ability to remain emotionally stable regardless of external validation. It's knowing that rejection does not reduce your value. So many women take rejection personally and immediately start questioning their appearance, personality, or worth. But compatibility is not a reflection of value. Someone not choosing you does not mean you are unlovable. Sometimes it simply means they are not aligned with you. And honestly, many women waste years trying to win over emotionally unavailable men because deep down they believe love must be earned. They think if they can finally make the emotionally distant man commit, then it will prove they are worthy. But healing begins when you stop seeing unavailable people as challenges to conquer. A relationship should not feel like a constant audition. You should not have to perform for basic care. Another major mistake is confusing boundaries with ultimatums. Healthy boundaries are not about controlling another person. They are about protecting yourself. A boundary says, "This behavior is unacceptable to me, and if it continues, I will remove myself." That is self-respect. But many women fear boundaries because they worry it will make them seem difficult or masculine. So instead, they tolerate behavior that slowly destroys their emotional well-being. They stay quiet about things that deeply hurt them because they fear conflict more than they value peace. But avoiding conflict does not create healthy relationships. It creates suppressed resentment. A woman who cannot advocate for herself eventually becomes emotionally exhausted because she is constantly prioritizing harmony over honesty. And the truth is, healthy men respect women who communicate clearly. They respect emotional maturity. They respect women who know themselves well enough to express needs calmly and confidently. Another mistake women make is trying to become perfect so they can finally be loved properly. They think if they heal enough, look perfect enough, achieve enough, or become agreeable enough, then they will never be abandoned. But perfection is not what creates healthy relationships. Authenticity does. Vulnerability does. Emotional honesty does. Human beings are imperfect. Relationships are imperfect. And love is not about becoming flawless. It's about finding someone who values you realistically, not idealistically. A lot of women also sabotage themselves by ignoring their intuition. Deep down, they often know when something feels wrong. They know when a man is inconsistent. They know when communication feels manipulative. They know when effort is one-sided. But instead of trusting themselves, they search for excuses. They overanalyze texts. They ask friends for reassurance. They try to decode mixed signals instead of accepting the reality in front of them. But confusion is often clarity in disguise. If someone genuinely wants to build with you, you will not constantly feel emotionally destabilized. And perhaps one of the most empowering things a woman can learn is that walking away is not failure. Ending unhealthy relationships is not weakness. Letting go of someone who cannot meet your needs is not giving up. Sometimes leaving is the most self-loving decision you can make. Because every time you stay in a situation that consistently hurts you, you teach yourself that your pain is acceptable. You have to stop romanticizing unavailable love. Stop glorifying suffering. Stop believing that endurance alone makes a relationship meaningful. The healthiest love stories are not built on endless pain and emotional confusion. They are built on mutual effort, emotional safety, trust, and respect. And there comes a point where a woman has to stop asking, "Why wasn't I enough for him?" and start asking, "Why was I willing to settle for so little?" Because that question changes everything. It shifts the focus back onto self-worth instead of external validation. It forces you to confront the patterns you've normalized. It forces you to recognize how often you abandoned yourself trying to preserve connections that were never healthy for you. The woman who wins in dating is not necessarily the most beautiful woman in the room. It's the woman who knows when to walk away. It's the woman who refuses to betray herself for temporary attention. It's the woman who can feel deep emotions without allowing those emotions to control her standards. It's the woman who understands that being alone is not the worst thing that can happen. Losing yourself is. And once a woman truly learns to protect her peace, her energy changes completely. She stops chasing people who are unsure about her. She stops overinvesting in emotionally unavailable men. She stops begging for consistency from people who thrive on confusion. She becomes calmer, more grounded, more selective. And ironically, this is often when she becomes the most attractive because she is no longer operating from desperation. She is no longer trying to prove she deserves love. She already knows she does.